Hi there. This is a Design Your Physician Life podcast. And today we're going to be talking about becoming the leader you're meant to be with Dr. Asha Padmanabhan. We hope that you have a great time today. This podcast episode is brought to you by our Maxillary Mastermind, which is a personal professional development program for physicians who want to learn about entrepreneurship. Are you ready? Let's go.
Welcome to the Design Your Physician Life podcast, where you will get excited about being a physician, learn the tools that can help boost your success, and great tips from successful doctors. Join us to unlock the keys to an amazing physician life. And now, here's your host, Dr. Myrdalis Diaz-Ramirez.
Hey guys, I'm very excited. Today we have Dr. Asha Padmanabhan, and she's a full-time clinical anesthesiologist and medical director, as well as fellow podcaster, blogger, and master certified physician coach with extensive leadership experience in hospital settings and at the state and national anesthesia society level spanning over a decade. She understands the intricacies of leading. Going through many of the challenges faced by working women physicians while pursuing her career aspirations and leadership roles while prioritizing her family, she turned to a coach to help her succeed. Recognizing the impact that coaching had on her own journey, she's trained as a physician coach herself, and she discovered her true passion for empowering other women physicians. Through her coaching program, she assists women physicians learn key skills like emotional intelligence, communication skills, and conflict resolution that helps them in the roles they currently have and the ones they aspire to. What sets her program apart is the emphasis on leveraging each individual's strength, behavior, and values to unlock their full potential without sacrificing personal or family life. Her entrepreneurship journey started with a direct sales business, which she started alongside her medical career, where she learned key skills like marketing and social media sales. She also owns her own coaching business. In addition to her dedication to her medical career and coaching business, Dr. Padmanabhan finds joy in spending quality time with her family, exploring new destinations, and savoring delicious cuisines, ideally combining all three. Thank you for being here. I'm so excited.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
I've been seeing all around, like every time I turn on social media, there you are on LinkedIn, on Facebook, you're helping people. You're now in committees, on sitting at the Florida Society of Anesthesiologists, president-elect. So you're like, I'm seeing patients also full-time, basically. So I'm so excited. Thank you for being here. Tell me how it has been. We met the first time, it was on here in Florida. Mm-hmm. On the East Coast. We had dinner together in a big, huge group, and things have changed since I met you.
Yes.
And it's close to 2 years ago, I think now.
It seems time's flown by, but yes.
Yeah. So how have things been?
Things have been good. Of course, we have all gone through all the challenging times. I think when we met, we were just past the stage of like acute COVID. And so, of course, that has changed all of our lives, and mine has changed as well, in that that period kind of gave me the impetus to look around and see things that I could do that I was not doing. And so the period of growth that has happened after that has been tremendous. So lots of leadership skills that have been developed and roles that have been enhanced from those skills.
That's awesome. So I see you all over the place, but before we were all over the place and before we met each other, we decided to go into medicine as a career, right? And I always like to do a little bit of review for people who are listening to us because, we identify with the different stories where we come from. Mm-hmm. And I love to listen to your story of who was the one who decided to become a physician. Was like little Asha or teen Asha? Mm-hmm. Who was that?
So that was... It wasn't exactly one of those ambitions of I always wanted to be a doctor. I was interested in medicine, but not sure that I wanted to be a doctor growing up. So growing up, I grew up in India. And in India, if you are reasonably good in academics, then you're either following the path of being a doctor or an engineer. And although I liked math and I was good at it, I didn't love it. And so the other path was medicine. And so that's how I ended up being a physician, because I liked biology and I liked the idea of medicine and the academics. And so that's where I ended up.
And where did you finish your studies?
I trained, my medical training was in India. And then the next part of my training, the first part of my anesthesia residency was in the UK, in England. And then I redid the residency here in Boston.
Oh my goodness, that's passion. So many people who redo residencies and we don't think about it. Personally, I went like all the way straight through. I was, fortunate enough that I didn't have to redo any of the steps in that way of training. But I admire people who come and then they still have that passion and they decide to retrain again. And looking back, really, if we measure things in COVID years, like we met around that time, repeating like 3 years at times is really nothing, right? For the
Yes.
things that you're going to get from that. So congratulations on that decision. So now you help, you're an anesthesiologist there in here in Florida. And now you are all the way to president-elect of the Florida Society of Anesthesiologists. That has been quite the ride, huh?
It has been quite a journey, quite an interesting journey.
So tell us, one of the things that really I think about is when we are in that, even from the moment we're medical students and then going through the residency, but the internship, I did an internship in anesthesiology, which was a unique experience. And from the time I was an intern, I was told that I was the leader of the OR, and with no knowledge, no backup, no training on, I don't know if I even got to see many things once, do one, teach one, even at the beginning, and we're placed in this position where as a physician, you're told that you're the head of the ship or whatever, version of that is chosen, but without really teaching us leadership skills, how to lead a team. They teach us medicine, we learn medicine, but we don't learn that really. It comes from the example of mentors, yes, but really not in a formal lecture, formal, intentional into the curriculum. What has been your experience with that?
I totally agree. I think it's one of the setbacks or the lack in our medical training that we are not taught how to lead or even how to communicate effectively or efficiently, how to resolve conflicts, because all the focus is on clinical skills and nothing beyond that. And I think that's kind of a failing of our system. So although we are told we are the leaders of the OR, we never feel like it because we feel like we're doing our clinical job, but leading the team is never something that we kind of think about consciously or work towards. So I think my journey was a little bit different and a little bit unique because I started my anesthesia residency in the UK. And there, unlike here, within 3 months of starting my residency, I was doing my own cases and I was in charge of the OR at night when I was on call. So the surgeons basically would go by, if I said a case could happen, it would. If it not, then it wouldn't. As a first-year resident, 3 months into training, that was pretty intense. And so I was used to starting to take those decisions. And then I came here and did the residency again. And it was totally different because in an anesthesia residency here in the US, you are supervised until the day you finish, which is 4 years of supervision without really any independence. So hugely different. But I kind of carried some of the skills of the UK with me in that I was confident in my clinical skills. And in that setting, I was good. What was different, though, was that thinking about myself as a leader of the team, that did not come till a lot later, because you think also kind of the atmosphere sometimes in our ORs where the surgeons are the king of the ship or the captain of the ship kind of tends not to let the anesthesiologists kind of get their voice heard a lot of the times. So it was really when I kind of fell into a leadership position or voluntold myself really into a leadership position that I actually started looking at it as something that I had to develop, skills that I had to develop, because clinical was fine, but being in charge of a group of people was different. And that's when I started actively going to learn skills, even as simple as financial skills, because the first position I had was the treasurer of my group, and I had absolutely no idea of the finances. And again, another failure of our system of medical teaching is that we don't teach our residents or medical students the business of medicine. And so once I started learning that skill, then it became a little bit more easier in terms of, okay, if I can learn financial skills, then what other skills do I need to learn to be a more effective leader in the OR? And so that's when I started looking at courses. I did a lot of courses, classes, leadership academies to learn those basic skills of communication, conflict resolution, because without that, we are dead in the water, in my opinion.
Did you notice once you were taking these courses, a change in your relationship with your hospital administration, and different than, when you were not going through, when you never had the experience of those courses, and then the communication between what it is now between you and the administration and the other physicians around you who have not been exposed to that type of learning?
Absolutely. Absolutely. When I first started leadership training, I was already chief of the hospital. So chief of anesthesia in the hospital. And the way I interacted, it was more the way I reacted to situations with the C-suite or with my fellow physicians, fellow non-anesthesia colleagues, other physicians, that really started changing, because I went from being a reactive person, reacting to all the pressures on me and the decisions that I had to make, to being more in the moment present and not start taking things personally, which most of us tend to do if we've not had that kind of training. It is human nature to be defensive when you're attacked, which happens a lot, or you perceive that you're being attacked. And so you go defensive. And so learning to separate that out, that I noticed a difference once I started learning about it and gaining those skills. And that's what I see the difference now in colleagues who haven't had that training, is we're still stuck in that defensive mode when we perceive an attack.
Yeah, and it's because of, it's lack of education, right? We don't have that, and that's so specific. And you've been put, as I said, in these situations. And for example, I was medical director. I was sitting at boards in the hospital, making decisions, and you're there making decisions, but you're really not going through this training. So let's see if there's some pearls around that type of training, something that, trying to make physicians understand that for us to be able to survive in these situations, it's not about what might seem crystal clear to us, unlike what I just said, but more about understanding the whole situation, understanding the parties, how to create the win-win situations. So when you get now a physician, you're training now the leadership, and you see somebody who's like on the verge of burnout, really having, butt heading with the administration, what are like the first things that you start to talk to that physician about? How do you help them transition into this way of communicating?
Yes. So very important is to, first key is really they have to be open to it and receptive. Because unless they are open and receptive, you're not going to get your point across. And so when I have not just physicians, but nursing colleagues as well that I see in conflict, the first thing I really do is let them calm down and take them aside, and then get into a conversation with them and try to understand where they're coming from. And then kind of offer a little different perspective on, maybe it's not all cut and dried, because when you're in that frame of anger or frustration, all you're seeing is your point of view, and you're not open to others. And so it takes time to calm that down, and then trying to figure out, okay, where is it that you're coming from? What is the possibility? Where is the other person coming from? Because a lot of times they are not thinking in that sense. It is all me, and how this affects me. And so trying to shift that narrative to, what do you think the other person is coming from? Where is that person coming from? What could be an alternative way of thinking about this challenge that you're facing right now? So that takes time and effort, and that's where we usually start. Again, it's different with my coaching clients, because they are coming into this with the idea that they are going to learn and be coached, where the colleagues or nurses or peers that I work with, they are not at all exposed to coaching. And so that conversation is entirely different. because they're not in the space of looking internally, because that's where it starts. Unless you look internally and figure out why you react to external challenges in the way that you do, you're not going to want to change.
And while you're being, you were like head already of an anesthesia department before you even started taking these courses. How have you seen your colleagues in that institution change and coming, maybe asking you for advice? How has that? Have you seen an influence of them seeing a change, with you?
Yes. So that first hospital, now that's over 8, 9, or 10 years ago now. But that first hospital, as I started changing the way I reacted, it created more of an open environment within the department where people felt that they could speak and they could be heard without being attacked. And so it was an open door policy, and they could come talk to me, and they knew that I had their back. I would support them. I may not agree with them exactly, but I would never throw them, in front of the wolf, rather, or in terms of never speak bad about them to someone outside the department. So once they started realizing that, it created an atmosphere more of collegiality, and it decreased the fights in the department.
What's a common problem that you see, in the positions that you are, of physicians, like that's a daily occurrence, that they may think that, this only happens to me, the world is against me, but it's really something that's very common that's happening across for many physicians once they get into a situation where they don't understand that other part. Which are some of those examples maybe that you can give us so that physicians can learn, hey, you know what, you're listening to this podcast, here's a situation where you could benefit from understanding where leadership training is of use, if is of help to you.
Yeah, so everyday conflict in the OR. So my examples are pretty much going to be from the OR, right? So everyday conflict, it happens with all of us, right? So the surgeon books a case and I don't feel the patient is ready. And prior to all this training, I would kind of stand on my ground. No, this patient is not ready. You have to come back later, another time. This is not just going. And I would be stuck on that, and I would be defensive about it. And
because your knowledge is being attacked, right? From your point of view, at that point of view, at that point in time, in that conversation. Like they're questioning you. That's what you went to medical school for. How can you dare question me? This patient not going, and they cannot go, and the surgery cannot be done.
Yes, how dare you?
The surgeon starts screaming because they want the patient to be done.
Yes, and that we see that every day, all day long. And what changed though is that, and the other person is the exact same way, right? I mean, they're there.
Correct.
Now, my other thing was I have a big, what I call an avoider tendency, where I hate conflict. And so that wasn't a good mix. So I would go defensive, then I would go quiet and not address the situation at all after that, and just be angry about it and frustrated. So once I started training and understanding why I reacted to things the way I did, and why there could be other ways to do it, then I started figuring out that, okay, I'm feeling attacked. Now, the question to ask myself was, did that surgeon really mean to attack my clinical skills, or was he just venting, or she venting and trying to get his thing done? And so once I could separate out and not take it personally, that whole feeling of being attacked went away. And then I could then be a little bit more calm in the way I reacted. And while that other person was yelling or shouting, I could stay in the calm zone and then take that person aside, figure out where they were coming from. It could be something simple, like that person needed to get to pick up his kids that day at a certain time, and so he couldn't operate then. And so, which I didn't know because I hadn't bothered to ask. And I had just gone on my defensive mode. So once I learned to figure out, not take it personally, go around, calm the person down by not continuing the fight, then I was able to ask that person, figure out, okay, what's going on? How can we work on this together? It increased my empathy levels. That person felt heard. and we could come up with a solution. So this is something that happens every single day. It doesn't have to be a surgeon and an anesthesiologist. It could be anyone you could have.
Anybody calling the ER or vice versa. Anybody calling radiology.
It could be anyone, any one of us in any situation, whether it's in the hospital or even with if you have a private practice with your own colleagues, your MA, whoever. It's the same principle. It's learning not to be defensive and starting to listen to the other person's perspective and then coming to a mutually agreeable solution. So that kind of helped.
So that's a clinical explanation, a clinical situation. Let's talk about one maybe more intense with the administration, where things, the principles are going to be the same. But where do you see this? Like, what sort of situation you see more commonly where physicians come to administration, they're really upset about X situation, and they are not able to communicate with administration?
Yes, and that's exactly the same principles, right? There are two people in the room, both have their own agendas, both want to win, and how do we make them both win? And one is more, the one person is angry and upset, the other person goes on the defensive, and then the tussle happens. So if you apply the same principles, right? If you're coming in with maybe that other person has a perspective that might help me, or if that person, administration, is saying no to something that I need, there might be a reason that may not be that they don't want me to succeed. Because what's going on in our mind at the time when we face administration? You want me to fail, or you're not going to give me enough to help me succeed, or any thoughts similar to that, where you're coming in with that kind of attitude to the administration, and they are, they have their own priorities, which are different from mine or my colleagues. So to get into that space of not taking it personally, second, being open to the other person's perspective, and that it's not really just, okay, I'll be positive, I'll be open, but not still have a mental block. Because a lot of us say that, okay, I'm open to listening to you, but all the time the other person is talking, we are thinking about what we have to reply. So you're not really listening to them.
So I'm pretty sure there's some techniques that you have to practice and learn, because having that feeling of, yes, I'm going to be open, I'm going to listen to them, but it's my way. That's the way it's going to be. There has to be some type of technique right there to make that shift. Anything that you could talk about?
Yes. So that's kind of what I train my clients on. And what I train them to do is when they're in any moment of high negative emotion, whether that's anger, frustration, guilt, shame, whatever it is, intense negative emotion, is to, for a second, pause, acknowledge that that's happening. You're feeling something. So acknowledge that for a second. And then I kind of give them a brief physical exercise that they can do wherever they are. And it could be taking a couple of deep breaths, or focusing on the other person's tie or shirt, or even something like wiggling your toes in your shoes as you're standing there preparing to talk. Something like an intense physical reaction. And what the research has shown, and what through my training we have seen, is that intense focus on a physical sensation kind of drops you down out of your high negative emotion into making it a little bit more possible for you to hear what we call the voice of your inner sage, where it's your wise self. It is you, but a calmer situation. So that's a technique that I usually train on, but it helps in every single situation in terms of whether it is your family, the CEO of the hospital, or the surgeon that I'm facing who's angry. It helps me shift, or it helps my clients shift from that high intense negative emotion to a more of a calmer, more open, and more available to listen to solutions rather than my way. Does that make sense?
Yes, totally. It's that physical preparation basically, and we've seen how physical preparation, like during the time that we met, we were talking about Tony Robbins, and that's sort of the training that they do. For example, there where they say where your energy goes, where your focus goes, your energy flows, and then and then how you prepare your body
Mm-hmm.
for different actions. So that totally makes sense. One of the things that can happen in conflict during leadership is that there's no win-win, right?
Yes.
So how do you prepare your clients for such a no win-win situation when you say, you know what,
Yes.
this is the end of the road, this is how things are going to be, and how do you learn to live and make a decision if to continue in that situation or move on?
Yes. So very interesting, because for quite a few years when I was doing leadership training, and this was always conflict communication, conflict resolution was, let's get to a win-win, let's get to a win-win. And although that sounds great, it never resonated with me in terms of, okay, if I'm going into a situation, what is win for me? What is win for them? How do we get this together? It never resonated in something that I could practice on a day-to-day basis. And that's where, when I hired my first coach and we started figuring out what my strengths were, what my weaknesses were, and how I could figure out this whole transition into conflict resolution, that it doesn't really matter what a win-win is, if you as a person is always looking at whatever outcome you're going to get out of that situation as a win. And let me give you an example. So every situation or every challenge that I'm faced with, I've learned to look at it as it's going to be a gift or an opportunity. It's going to be a gift. Maybe I don't see it right now, but down the road, there is a gift in that. So when I had some challenges or bumpy roads in my career, at the time, it felt like the end of the world. But looking back, it was a huge gift for me that happened. So now I have learned to intentionally look at every setback or a challenge as a win or an opportunity to learn that will help me further down the road. So that's what I train my clients, as well as everything. So then when you go into a conflict or when you go into a negotiation, everything, whether that happens, it's what you wanted or what you didn't want, is a win.
The gift of the experience.
It's a gift.
And you're going to be better for it at some point,
Mm-hmm.
or, especially if you're looking to grow and to learn from it, rather, and where you have that sense of, communication that you've given to that experience the most of you, in a way that hopefully there was some respect from both sides. And happening.
you don't go into any negotiation or any conflict worried about what your win is going to be.
Yeah. So when you're going into a negotiation, which sort of expectations should you set for yourself besides that big one?
Yeah. So, I mean, always when we go into negotiations, for whether it's a position or it's negotiation for time or money or whatever it is, I think really understanding what you want and why you want it it has to be clear. But then also, what are you willing to walk away from? They call it in negotiation terms, BATNA. What's the best alternative to a negotiated agreement? So when you have that, you have this is ideal, this is less ideal, but I will be okay with it. And the last one is, okay, if I don't get anything that I need, then that's the last alternative. So at least being clear on what your best, what it is that you want, and then what is it that you're going to be able to walk away from thinking it's still fine, and still being okay with walking away with nothing. So that's preparing for that. So preparing for best, second best, and I'm still okay.
And the gift of the experience.
Exactly. So I'm still okay. So that's the gift.
That's the gift of the experience. So tell us about these positions that you've been holding. Right now you're a president-elect for the Florida Society of Anesthesiology. So congratulations on that. That's awesome. Tell us about what things do you think helped you more specifically to make it to that point?
I will say there's only two words: grit and perseverance. And I will tell you why. Because when I first ran for the position, which is actually not the president-elect, but it is starting with assistant treasurer. And then it's a 7-year journey to become president. So you start off as an assistant treasurer. So when I first threw my hat in the ring for that position, I didn't win. I tried again the next year. I didn't win. I tried again the third year. I didn't win. And by the fourth year, do I really want to do this? And my only goal was there was no one on the board that looked like me in terms of female, color, anything. So you know where I'm going with that. So that was the only reason that I ran. And I had a lot of people supporting me, telling me you should absolutely keep trying. But 4 years in a row of not winning, it does something to you. So in the last year, I did win. And then from then on, it's been a yearly progression to up the ladder to now it's president-elect. So that's what I say. It's basically not giving up, finding an obstacle and figuring out a way around that obstacle.
Have you seen colleagues of yours in this in the last 7 years of this, or 11 years, may I say, right? It's taken you like 11 years to get to that position, where you've seen the gap in the leadership education, and seeing already working on examples that you're thinking about where you can bring, as a woman of color to this position, not only that sensation of having somebody that looks like you, but somebody who is also further trained in leadership.
So the gap, I think, is more in terms of women physicians not feeling that they are capable of doing the job, or not thinking that they can. That's the main reason. And so because of that, there's all these internal barriers they put up in that I don't have the time, I'm not capable of this, I'm not a leader. And so they never even put their names up for positions like this. And over the last 10 years that I've been in this organization, that's over and over that I see that. I have female colleagues come up and they're like, wonderful that you're doing it, but it's not for me because that's not something I'm capable of. And either if they're thinking of I'm not capable of it, or the second thing is, oh, I don't have the time for it. And I tell them, time is, it's not that much at all, considering, it's a position. Until the last couple of years, the time commitment is not all that much, but just the fear of that keeps a lot of women physicians away. And so the gap in, if we had that leadership training, if we had those skills, it would also get rid of some of those imposter feelings that we have, which had played a huge part for me as well. I sit on the board and there are times I question whether I belong there. And we all have that. And to be able to go through that and be trained and know you are capable of being here and of taking this position, that's where the gap comes in.
In your committees that you're sitting and on the board that you're sitting, do you guys share this type of conversation amongst the, doesn't matter sex or gender or background? Are you seeing more people being more open to share this type of do we belong here, or do we need training on this type of communication skills or leadership skills to be here? Are you seeing more of a camaraderie, like of people coming closer and being more open about these topics?
It's very tough, and I'll tell you why. It's because most of our male colleagues have no idea of what we go through and why we go through that. And so for them, since it's not in their experience, they have not heard about it. And I'll give you an example. So I was sitting with, they're all willing to and open to listen, but it's so far outside their thinking that it's really strange. And for example, one of my colleagues was asking me, so I'm the chair of the Women Anesthesiologists Committee at the American Society, and he was asking what sort of work we did. And I was telling him about a recent publication. Well, a year ago, the committee sponsored and published a study about the gender pay gap in anesthesia. And he was very puzzled by how that would happen and why that would happen, because on the surface, many programs, many groups have sort of transparent, well, not many, few do, transparent pay scales where supposedly everyone gets paid the same. And so he was shocked when I said most women physicians don't negotiate. Their first pay, their second pay, the third job, we don't negotiate. And he was looking, are you serious? Because negotiation is such a part of the male psyche that they do it automatically. And so he was shocked to hear that even starts there, that we don't even do that. So those kind of conversations are happening, but it is still a lot of work to be done because they don't think like us, we don't think like them, and we think they understand, they don't, they won't understand, because for them it is really, is this even a problem? Why is it a problem?
Yeah, right now, for example, personally, I don't go to any presentation of any opportunity without negotiating. Like, I'm like ready to negotiate and they give you the money, like really, because you just asked. I'm gonna give you a couple of examples. There were one opportunity recently where physicians are making X amount. And I said, I'm not going to do it for that. And I say, in my company, because I have a company. So I go in the name of my company. In my company, we really do it for X fee. Mm-hmm. And that X fee is really, in that case, was like 80% more of what they were offering. And say, okay, well, we'll do that. And then another situation just happened last week. Same thing. They come with X amount of money offering for this consultation. I say, well, in my company, really don't accept that. And that amount to start with was already considered probably good by many physicians. But if you don't ask, you don't get, right?
Yes.
So then I went there and immediately they increased. Well, we can do 50% more. Mm-hmm. And just for asking. So I'm pretty sure they could have done more if I kept pushing. But because of I was already my win-win, I think. Then I identified that and then I backed that I didn't get greedy. Yes. But I'm pretty sure that you can push a little bit more and still get some more. So, and that's not something that comes easily. It requires training. It requires you seeing other people doing it and pushing you for it. Yeah. The same thing when you go to a contract in your hospitals. Yes, all these contracts are generic and they're going to offer everybody the same, but everything's negotiable. And when you are going to a contract with a hospital, as a physician, you should, and my recommendation would be to never, ever, ever do that alone. Get a lawyer. Mm-hmm. And the lawyer negotiates these things on your behalf, because this is a huge, big contract for your life.
Great. Great tips. Exactly. I mean, and as you said, it might not only be money. You could negotiate for so many things. Time.
Vacation. Come on.
Vacation. Yeah. Yes. A lot of different things. So it's not only the money part.
And we're working the type of cases you want to see, all these things. There's things that you some of us want or prefer not to do. For example, when I was doing anesthesia and I was doing pain management, I really was the first one in my department to stop doing anesthesia cases, because I really wanted to focus on interventional pain management. And I said, you know what, if I really want to be a great pain doctor, I love doing anesthesia, but I have to choose right now. And I was the first one, and I had to go there and sit down and negotiate that. And that was a shock to the department. But you go through the conversation, right? Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, I didn't have the training for leadership. I still got what I wanted, and the department still had me working there. But it makes it easier when you have that type of training. So let's jump a little bit into the training that you do. Mm-hmm. Which sort of physicians and professionals you're helping, and we'll get into how to do that process and get in touch with you.
Sure. So I really specifically coach women physicians, and it's in career and leadership and just being happy at work. And that's what it all boils down to, because the skills that I teach, the conflict resolution, the communication, will make you a great leader. But if you don't have a position or a title, it will still help you in every aspect of your life. whether it's in your private practice or the same skills apply even in your personal life. So that's who I focus on. I focus on female physicians and teaching them the essential skills of communication, conflict resolution, emotional intelligence.
When they come to you, what are maybe one or two questions that they come that's very common across the board? Hey, Asha, can you help me with X? What's that X?
I am really unhappy at work because I go in and XYZ is happening. And how do I be happier? How do I look forward to going to work again? That's one that commonly comes up.
That's very common. And can you tell me about some of examples of these physicians maybe telling us which position they were, what the conflict was, and what the transformation was when they went through your course?
Yes. So one of them is in a residency. She trains fellowship. She has fellowship students, fellowship residents, I guess, fellows. And she was stressed out a lot of the times about training them, about getting the work done. And at the end of our training, she came back and said, my family, my people outside of medicine are telling me I'm so much happier because I'm not stressed out at work now. And I am able to let the fellows learn without having to control everything that they do. And so that was one. And another one was, she said she used to go into work 100% negative all the time. And within 6 weeks, she was saying now it's like 30% that I go into work negative. It's 70% positive, and I'm looking forward to going to work again.
That makes such a difference, and from as a functional medicine doctor these days, we have lifestyle medicine components. And one of those pillars of lifestyle medicine are, there's the sleep, the diet, the exercise, substance use, stress management, and relationships. Mm-hmm. And at work, we see as anesthesiologists, we have such a high, use of substances. Yeah. And that comes because of our stress, our mental issues, and access, obviously, and relationships. So if you solve that, you've solved, you're doing anti-aging right there for you.
Yes.
So that's awesome. That's great. So tell us about, I wanted to talk before we get into how to get in contact with you a little, just dedicate a few minutes, because there's this other part about entrepreneurship about you, besides having your own course, the investment part. Yes. And then I want to touch on that and see tell us what those are, those experiences that you're brewing on the side. And how has that changed also your relationship with medicine these days?
Yes. So very important. So the pandemic came, right? And we were all thinking about, it was a crazy period of time. And I look back at that period and see that as a period of great growth for me, because that was the time that I got to focus a little bit more on my own internal learning. And really, that was the time I found coaching and trained as a coach. But also that was the time that I started seeing all these other physicians who were investing in real estate and doing all sorts of things that I had never thought that could be me possibly, because I had told myself over and over that I'm not good with finances. I don't know how to manage my money. I don't know how to invest in real estate. I don't know all these things. And I keep telling myself that. So that period really opened up my eyes to see what was possible, and took me on a journey of learning how to invest and what to do and how to figure that out. And as physicians, we are all learners. We learn every single day. We're good at learning. And so that really, so I started doing that. I started investing a little bit in real estate. And what that did is gave me the confidence that here was something that I thought I was really bad at, and I could learn that skill as well. And so the leadership and the medicine part, it really helps to know that, okay, I'm not a one-horse pony. I mean, whatever that term is, in terms of this is the only thing that I could do. Because before I even got into entrepreneurship 6-7 years ago, I thought I'm a physician, that's all I can do. And then all these other opportunities came in, which showed me that I could do all these other things. And that makes medicine more enjoyable, because I know that it's not just the only thing that I'm stuck in.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations on those things.
Thank
And then
you.
as we get to the end of our interview here, tell us how we can get a hold of you, in contact with you if we want to work and learn leadership from you.
Yes, absolutely. So I can give you the links for my social media, which is the best place to find me, and my website. And I'm launching my next cohort in July, so I'll be posting all of about that on the social media as well. So that's the best place to find me, or just email or contact me.
Okay, can you give us your email right now? We're gonna
Sure.
have that all in our podcast, in our videos.
Yes, it's Asha at theleadershiprx.com. So that's all one word. The Leadership RX is one word. So it's Asha at theleadershiprx.com.
Wonderful. Is there any particular recommendation or tip or something that we haven't talked about, and you say, you know what, we should tell this to our listeners right now?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you a little bit of, just to focus on female physicians, but this is for everyone as well, is that, whether you have a title or not, you are a leader. So own that, accept that, figure out your strengths, and figure out where the opportunities that you can improve, and find someone who can help you improve and learn those skills. I mean, that's the best way to do it, whether that's a coach, a mentor, a sponsor, all three of them. But learn your skills and then take it, and you will succeed.
Well, thank you. Thanks a lot for being here. And we look forward for all the work that you have for the next couple of years, right? In the society. So congratulations again. And thanks for being here again.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Well, guys, that was it for today. I hope that you had an awesome time like I did with Dr. Padmanabhan. You can actually connect with her through her website, theleadershiprx.com. I hope that you had a great time, that you learned a lot about becoming the leader you're meant to be, and you join us the next time. Remember to visit our website, maxallure.com, MAXALLURE, to learn more about how you can learn about entrepreneurship and regain and retake and remain in control of your physician life. Have a great day. Share this with your friends and family. Give us 5 stars, subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you later. Thanks. Bye.
Please remember that Design is not providing specific financial, medical, or career advice. Our only intent is to stimulate your appetite for growth by sharing our experience and those of our speakers, coaches, and guests. Your personal growth and success will be unique to your circumstances and your hard work. We sincerely hope you enjoyed the show and look forward to seeing you next week.